I want us just to hear from Caroline a little bit. You guys get to know her. Of course, Ryan was here last year about this time, a little later. I think it was September last year, and we were glad that you were able to come. I want to just say before we get into it that my first memory of Caroline, this is weird because Caroline and I grew up a couple streets apart, but we never met until basically adulthood. I was like probably 19 or 20, and you were, I'm not going to say how old you were. You said it. Okay. But my first memory of Ryan and Caroline is going to this little Baptist church that was right up the street from really the houses that we both grew up in. And I had kind of started to read the Bible, and I had walked away from my past, kind of some of my old friendships in high school and the typical stuff. In fact, we went to the same high school. We could tell you about that some other time. We joke about how much of a joke the school was. At any rate, we went to the same public high school, and so I'd walked away from all that, started going to church, and the first church I attended was this really big, really rigid, legalistic church, and I never quite fit in. I was always the public school kid. I had the mullet back then and everything, so I was like, I had a gold chain. I was reprimanded. Did you know that? I was reprimanded for wearing a gold chain at that church. Anyway, but I met Ryan and Caroline, and right away we hit it off, and they recently had married, and they were just getting their lives started, and we'd hang out at their house or their apartment at the time, and they were just very real, and we would talk about Seinfeld all the time and watch it together, which was awesome, and talk about the Bible and what God was teaching us. So that's my first memory, and again, so she's from the same town I grew up in, and then has been serving in Taiwan, and we've supported you guys for a number of years now, and they've been there 7 years total, right?
Yes.
So almost 7 years.
7.
There you go. Yeah, make sure you use that. Is that coming through, Tracy? Because I want to get this recorded. Okay, so I have questions. First are the non-spiritual category. Just don't be spiritual. This is just like real stuff, okay? So what's been the most enjoyable part of living in Taiwan? What do you like the most about it?
Okay. Well, I knew this was coming, so I've been thinking about that.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, it's just a cool place. Like, isn't that a lame answer? It's just so other. It's so not the U.S. That's not why it's great. It's just something I had never experienced. If you think Taiwan and you think movies and whatever, it's that. Little old ladies pushing carts of like, a huge mountain of boxes, and they're like 104. And we have, my little veggie lady I go to visit, and you walk down the street and you know everybody. You get to meet everybody. And there's this kind of sense of community there that's just really neat. You know your neighbors, you shop for individual items on the street side, and it's congested and crazy, and there's 4 kids on a scooter and a mom up front. A mom in the back and a dad up front. It's nuts. But it's just so different. So I think that was like the best thing.
Just enjoy that, experiencing something so different like that. And unlike Rhode Island, people actually talk to you, and there's a sense of community.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. If we really wanted to make this fun, we could have done this whole interview with our old accents, but that would be. We could try that. Yeah. It's hard. I'd have to be angry for it to come out from me though. So I don't think that's gonna work.
Not for nothing.
not for nothing. Yeah, you can fix that, Dave. Okay, continuing.
Okay.
So what's been the hardest part about living there?
Well, the obvious one is the language. You thought I was going to say Ryan.
I thought you were going to say Ryan.
No, Ryan's awesome. He's my rock. And but really the language, the culture, but tied up in the culture is language. So I was sharing with Jeff and Jill and the girls who have been like the best tour guides, sweetest things. Those little girls have kept me company. And, I'm missing my kids. I've been gone for 27 days from my children. It's so nice to play with the girls. And anyway, but so in the culture and the language, it's just every single thing. Like my laundry soap is just covered in Chinese. So I asked Ryan to go pick up laundry soap for me, and he's sending me pictures. Is this it? Is this it? Is this it? I'm like, it's the one with the bird on it. He's like, this bird, this bird, this bird. And then, just like my microwave is just all Chinese. So we're like defrosting things I want to be cooking. And every little thing we had to adjust to,
Mm-hmm.
everything. If we wanted to, in the beginning, when we had no skills, we relied heavily on our small little church body or friends that I
Yeah.
made. They were great. I mean, they were very helpful.
Yeah.
But
You were showing us pictures last night, and there's this one
mm-hmm.
gal in one of the pictures who's Taiwanese, and she said she was super helpful and like my best teacher. And so one of the girls said, "Oh, so she knows English?" And she said, "No, she doesn't know English."
No.
But they just started a
Yes.
relationship and started spending tons of time together
Yes.
and just wrestled through
Yeah.
the awkwardness of not having a common
That's
language.
right. Yeah.
So yeah,
It was like a lot of charades. I'd like hold like caveman. I'm holding up like fire. Whatever. But it was seriously like that. In the beginning, we just kept saying the words we each knew. So she'd learn an English phrase or two, and I'd learn a Chinese phrase, and we're just like
yeah,
back and forth, like saying the same thing. It was a little weird.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, really. Yeah,
Yeah.
it really is amazing. Looking at pictures, yeah, you can tell this is
Yeah.
completely different, and
So
so yeah, that's a challenge for sure. Okay, so now we move into the spiritual questions. This is another interesting. So I picked her up at the airport on Wednesday, and we're riding back, and we're talking about growing up in the same neighborhood and going to the same high school, and then we're talking about kind of like the spiritual trajectory of our lives, and it's very similar. Like both Caroline and I didn't even know this until we talked on Wednesday. We both went to Rhode Island College, our first year
yes.
out of high school.
Yeah.
We both had things from the high school years and that first year in college that we kind of wanted to repent of, turn away from, and then we both ended up in a really conservative Baptist circle. You went to Bob Jones University. The
We
only
can edit that.
Yeah, right. Strike that from the recording. I went to the far more liberal, not really, Clearwater Christian College, which had almost all its administrators and teachers and faculty coming from Bob Jones University. So it's very similar, although we had a beach nearby, which was a controversial thing. At any rate, so even just talking about like the trajectory of our spiritual lives, there was a lot of parallels
Yes.
all the way till, and we're just going to fast forward
Yep.
to the last couple years when Ryan was here last summer, fall. He preached and talked quite a bit about kind of how God was breaking him down and getting him to a place of, call it gospel surrender, gospel awakening. And so I guess just for the benefit of our little church here, I'd love for you to talk about how God worked it in your life. We know Ryan's side of it, but our people haven't heard your side of that.
Right. So it took a lot to get us to Taiwan, and that's a huge story. And I think some of you knew Ryan lost his dad and lost his sister 2 years later during while he was in seminary. We get to Taiwan, and everything feels right, and it's good, and it's struggle. It's a struggle, but we're learning the language, and I'm catching on pretty quickly because I'm a woman and I like to talk, and I have that opportunity to talk all the time, and so I'm seeing Ryan's struggle with the language is very discouraging, especially for a pastor whose job is counseling. Like a huge part of his job is to counsel. And now maybe I have to come in and help translate, or we have to bring another person in to help translate. And anyway, um, but my life was pretty smooth, and Ryan's rocky. And that's just our personality. But there are times I'm like, Ryan, go call Jeff. If you don't call Jeff, I'm leaving. Like call Jeff. But Jeff has been just gold to our family. Honestly, you guys, man, you have access to just wonderful
I'm a great guy,
counselor.
everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a great guy, he really is. But so, I think when we were at 6 years of marriage, and all of you married people could maybe relate to this. Like you're past the honeymoon stage, but you're not one of these solid marrieds at 15, 20, 25 years. You're at this like weird place. And I remember being 6 years married. We're almost 25 now. And it like starting to be a struggle. Like, oh, this is it. This is where we're going to be. This is how life is. And at about 5 to 6 years in Taiwan, the newness was starting to dwindle. Like I had experienced everything new, all the disgusting food, all the wonderful food, all the weird things. People would come up and touch my hair and my skin and look at my eyes and my nose. We're very different, us Americans, compared to Asians. And, like all of that I had experienced and all these other great things and bad things. And um, feel like we just kind of settled in. And then I start to notice during school. So I homeschool. We have 7 children. I was homeschooling my kids, and they don't have friends. The children in the neighborhood are not available because they're studying. And it sounds there's a lot to that, but that's what they're doing. They're not on the streets playing unless they're younger. So all of my older children have no friends, and they're just surrounded by each other. My older 2 children were out of the house and came back and reminded me, Mom, we might be this little community of people, but they're still our siblings. It's not the same as having friends. So Ryan and I are thinking, oh, they're okay. They've got each other. And now my older ones are like, it's not okay. They need friends. So now that's starting to weigh on me, and then the attitudes and the fighting. And I just really reached a point where I'm like, Ryan, I can't do this anymore. I don't know what to do. We cannot put them in public school. The Chinese level is way too high. I mean, our children speak great Chinese. We're really jealous of it. But to read and write and keep up with that level was just too much. The Christian school, if we were willing to do it, which we weren't, is way too expensive. There is a Christian school, and most of the missionary kids go there, but we couldn't afford it. And I could just put one in, but that's not really fair either, or I don't even know the right word. So, I'm really struggling, and Ryan conveys this to Jeff. And I just confessed to Jeff on the couch the other night. It was like,
How mad you were at me.
I was so mad at Jeff's answer. And Ryan, because he conveyed the message, like, change it or something, Ryan,
You soften it.
But Jeff was just expressing, like, this is so good for Caroline. That was the message. This is so good for Caroline. Like, you jerk.
Well, you know why?
No.
Because you're one of these people like my wife who's like virtually perfect and just very even keeled, and you take everything so well and such a positive attitude. And so people like Ryan and myself who are like this, we like to see you crack a little bit. That's like the human answer. That's the human, but seriously. So the spiritual part of it, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was cracking, and I don't feel like I've been fixed. That's not it. But I can see, like, I'm telling the kids, be nice, just be nice, and I'm like, like my veins are bulging and spit is flying, and I'm just like, I can see it, that the Lord is working on me. I can't not fix my children. And some would claim to be believers. I don't really know exactly where they are on the journey, and I feel like they are my first and foremost. If we're going to talk like spiritual mission terms, they're my first mission, right? My kids are around my table, and I know that these struggles are good for me, even though I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate it. We all hate that, right? We don't want it like that.
Yeah.
So it is not easy. It's part of, maybe I'm answering a question. The loneliness is overwhelming at times. We don't have the fellowship. I've gotten to meet some of you over the last 4 or 5 days, and it's like that big glass of cold water to just fellowship with believers. And there's instant like that kinship immediately. I don't know this guy, but I'm hugging him like I've known him for 25 years.
He does that with everybody, though.
And, I mean, I know he's like just going to do the awkward hug and not let you go. But no, I mean, I feel like this with each one of you that I've met, and of course, I haven't seen Jill in years, and I'm with her, and I'm like, she's the dearest friend, and so we appreciate the prayers and you guys, your support. This is funny. Can I just mention this one thing about you guys bought us a washing machine? So our washing machine broke, and the kids at first thought it was the coolest thing ever. We're going to wash clothes by hand. We're doing the prairie life.
In a high-rise building, in a
high-rise
crazy
building for a
city.
family of 9 in the disgusting streets of Taiwan, like the smog. The air is not pine trees and pine cones, okay? But so that lasted for about 2 days. That they loved it. They're squeezing out things, and got the soap line and the bucket and the rinsing, and I'm getting more and more discouraged. And Ryan just said, I don't even know how he brought it up. Like, yeah, Caroline's washing hands, clothes by hand.
Yeah, we're just
or
talking
something.
and it came up.
And you're like, wait, what? That's weird. And so, like, before we knew it, Jeff's telling us, go buy a washing machine. And, like, you have no idea that encouragement. And I love my washing machine. I think of Summit Lake. It must, like, play the Summit Lake theme song when I open the lid. It's like, but things like that, guys, like just knowing, I mean, I have Facebook friends in here, right? And I'm putting real live people to faces and pictures that are now moving. And it sounds very Harry Potter, but anyway, it's so.
I would never read Harry
No,
Potter.
it's
I don't know
okay.
what
You're
you're
not
talking
missing
about.
anything. But yeah, it's really encouraging to have you guys. And now you know things, some things to pray for, like that lack of fellowship. And some things are changing in our family right now where we might get some fellowship
Yeah.
with the different changes going on. But
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. And so then just being along for the ride and seeing God work in their lives. And to be clear too, and Caroline basically said this, but the exposure piece of, hey, seeing yourself, right? Coming to the end of yourself that we all need, and that God is bringing us through things to get us to that place. And that's where we really discover his grace, is when we feel like we're at the bottom and there's nothing we can do to dig out, And so, walking through that with them has been a amazing privilege, and they've both been there for me in countless ways too. And so super grateful. Maybe I'll say one more thing and then ask this final question, just because she mentioned, and I'll try to summarize this. We were talking about how do you be concise about this, but basically having ministered for years in this little church and working with people there, and then they went through a leadership battle. When Ryan was here last fall, some of you remember, he was in a really hard place, and he was pretty honest about that, where they were in terms of ministry at that point. Well, now they've for the time being disbanded as a church. They have people, they have other churches that their people go to, but they, as a family, Ryan and Caroline and their kids, are going to a church a little ways away. And Ryan, he preached his first Sunday there. It's how many people? 200 people, 100 to 200 people, 200 people. So it's a good sized church. It's an English speaking church largely. Services are in English, so they can plug in more. And Ryan can take a year now and just focus on the language. I mean, learning Chinese is like one of the hardest, if not the hardest languages in the world. And Ryan's goal this year is to really hit that hard and see, is this viable for us, depending on how his language development goes. And then they're looking at other possibilities if not. So is that fair to say?
yeah,
Just sort of leave
that
it?
was perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Great. Okay. So then the last question, so that you can talk more about like what your part. So we heard, we know Ryan was doing the studying and counseling some people and preaching through a translator. So your part, you've had some exciting opportunities too. So just maybe a little bit about that.
Yeah. So about maybe 3 years ago now, this lady I met right away when we first moved there. So we've had about a 6.5 year friendship. She does not speak 1 ounce of English. So that was another weird one in the beginning, kind of stare at each other and wave a little. Ni hao, hello, ni hao. So she has 2 little boys. She asked me if I'd be willing to teach an English class. She had 4 children. And so that just blew up. I have 22 students now. Our house is about a 5-minute walk from the elementary school. So these kids come in Wednesday, Friday, Saturday for 3 hours. Not 3 hours of class. So like I have a 2 to 3, a 3 to whatever. And they're all different times and schedules. And so the little children are coming in and the moms are coming in and dropping them off and picking them up. So I have interaction with all of the moms. Because I can speak Chinese now with them, it's really, really nice. Like if this were 4 years ago, there's no way I could handle it. And the kids are just talking to me in Chinese. I answer them in English. So, and then I'll say something in English. They get that like question mark here. And then I say it in Chinese and they're like, oh, pick up the scissors. Okay. Like whatever. So that has been like one of the neatest ministries because I'm just in the heart of the community learning about all the stuff that these little kids do each day. They're in and out of my house, just playing with my kids, which is nice. They're little. So these are 2nd, 3rd, 4th graders. So they're young. And I have a 3.5-year-old son, but the next one in line is 11. That's Ezra, and he's going into 6th grade. So these are still little kids, but they're kids nonetheless. It's okay. So there's that opportunity. There's been another thing that came up. We call it the Taipei City Camp. This Christian school that we wouldn't send our kids to, host this camp because they have a really beautiful facility. The city says, because we're going to host it at your school, I mean, because you're going to host it, anything goes. So the director of that school said, well, we're believers, we're Christians, we want to share the gospel with these kids. This is culture. The camp is about American culture. So it's all 4th of July's and fireworks and blah, blah, blah. And I wear red, white, and blue and like, ridiculous necklaces and hats and stuff like that. And they said, the Taipei city said, good, teach them your culture. So it's like this open door to teach these children. So I've done this year was the 3rd year in a row. And combined, there's 225 to 250 children. So the camp goes like day 1, 2, 3, and then it starts over with another batch of children. So I was able to just share the gospel with these little kids and teach them in my classroom. I can share gospel because that's my culture. And I shared the wordless book with them because that's a nice visual for them to see and have a little slideshow. And my heart is changing on how this whole like mission thing works, right? Because I went there and I'm like, you think you got to just like tell every single person and just keep hammering them with it. And this is my new thought is just this whole planting little seeds all along the way. And I just remind them, when you get old and you're not content and you have your wife and your dog, or your wife and your boy, and now you've got everything you've strived for, you can speak English, and you're not content, look for Jesus. Find a church. There's churches in Taiwan. And I just keep saying, look for Jesus. The answer is Jesus, boys and girls. And they're like, I don't know. Who knows what will happen? I don't know. But the Lord promises that his word's not going to return void. I just have to trust that. So
right. And you said to us the other day, I love this too. She said, we don't even like the association of being called a missionary. There's a certain association with that, And she said, it's really simple. We're just there doing life. She's like, it's like you and Jill are doing life here, and you've got the school and activities and this and that in the community, and we're doing life, and we're rubbing shoulders with people, and God is using those relationships to include these events and things you're able to do with the kids and to teach English, which Caroline was an elementary ed major in college. So all that too just fits, right? It's a great opportunity. So you've got Ryan doing his thing, and you've got Caroline doing her thing and their children, and it's been great to see how God's worked to this point, and we're all just praying about what comes next and trusting that God has a plan here, and in the meantime, one day at a time. So good. Yeah, any last thoughts? Anything else you want to say? We're good?
No, we just really appreciate your prayers. I mean, to know that there's these groups of people, like I got to go to Florida, met the group of people there, just big amount of people who are praying for us. And then I go to Ohio and meet another pocket of friends up there, in Rhode Island, another group of friends. And now I'm on the other side of the state, the country, and it's just so encouraging to see like the faces and the support. And we are just so grateful for you guys, really grateful for this ministry, and really happy to see you live.
Awesome. All right, let's pray for Ryan and Caroline, and we'll sing some more. Okay, continue our service. God, thank you for this time, for our church here to get to know Caroline better and hear from her, hear her heart and her perspective on things that you've been bringing their family through. Thank you for your love for them. Thank you for weaving together the story of the Geer family and the Pierce family for decades now. Thank you for the things that you've done. Thank you for their friendship. Thank you for the encouragement and fruitfulness. Just how Caroline's been so sweet to our family, our girls, and enjoying fellowship and the ways that she's been refreshed by being here. God, we give you thanks. You're the giver of all these things, and I pray for them in the future and for Ryan's studies, that you'd help him. God, thank you for all the relationships he has and the people he's already impacted, and pray you'd encourage him in the work. I know it can be discouraging for him at times, so I pray you'd encourage him in the work and help him to see the way you're using him in certain ways just to keep him going. And for Caroline, the same. We desire encouragement, and we leave the future in your hands, God. Whatever you have for them, thank you for your promise to take care of them. And most of all, thank you for your good news and how they can be assured, and all of us can be assured, that we are forgiven and loved, and that we have been and are being relentlessly pursued by you, and in the end we'll be home with you. So thank you for that rock solid foundation upon which we live and move and have our being. So thank you again for this time. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Okay. Yeah.
All right, go ahead.